Okay, good evening, everyone. And today we have an interesting class. I think will be very interesting. Um, Let this class first of all be for the merit of the protection of all the Jewish people. We should all merit to be protected wherever B'chol Makom Shehem, wherever Jews are across the entire world, especially in the land of Israel. All the threats will be completely nullified, and all the dinim and judgments will go on the wicked, and it will not, God forbid, in any way harm the Jewish people, even the tiniest bit. All Jews across the world will be safe and sound, and it's going to be good. So in today's class, I'd like to talk a little bit about connecting it a little bit to last week's Torah portion. I did not work on connect. I'm sure there's connections to this week's Torah portion as well. This week we begin reading Deuteronomy, Sefer Devarim, book number 5, very special. However, let's focus in on events that just transpired, that happened, and which I believe and feel that have cosmic significance. So last week we saw the elimination of some pretty evil guys. We saw top-notch people, major murderers with a whole lot of blood in their hand, orchestrators of the worst massacre were taken out. The one that made the news on the biggest level and what is causing the rattling of nerves of so many people across the world was Ismail Haniyeh, the head of Hamas, the literal head of Hamas, the kind of the head of the head of the snake. He wasn't in Gaza; he was out in Qatar, hiding out in the safe haven of Qatar, and he was eliminated in Tehran when he went there for the inauguration of the new president of Iran, which was needed to be appointed a new president because the old president was also taken out miraculously. That was like a real miracle. And that was where Raisi, I don't know what the Iranians are thinking, at which point do you realize that Allah Akbar, the great God that you're constantly calling for, is not really on your side? Not at all. You've been trying very hard, crying out to him, and the miracles never happened to you. They only happen on the other side. So that is like really amazing. So anyways, Raisi, the president of Iran, a rabid anti-Semite, found his lovely end when his helicopter crashed into a mountain and he was killed immediately after he started up, just a few days after he started up with Israel, by sending, a month, just barely a month after he sent hundreds and hundreds of missiles and rockets and drones. They say about 350. And miraculously, nobody in Israel was scratched. First of all, they should learn their lesson and realize what kind of an embarrassment the Iranians have in front of the entire world, that they were going to do a major attack and they couldn't harm anybody. So that was, obviously, it's because God was protecting us, not because of Israel's incredible defense system. It was solely a miracle from God. But in any case, Ismail Haniyeh was taken out somehow. Now, there's a dispute of how he was killed. Either, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard claims that he was killed through a rocket, a short-range rocket that was fired perhaps from somewhere inside Iran by some infiltrator or whatever, Israeli Mossad spies, whatever it is, and that's how he was killed. Or there was, according to the New York Times, where their sources is that he was killed by a bomb that was planted in his quarters where he was, and the bomb was already planted 2 months ago, 2 months before it happened, which obviously is also an incredible feat. Now, everybody knows that Israel was behind it. That's why Iran is threatening to take revenge. The only thing is that Israel did not take open credit for it. However, within that very same day or the next day, Bibi Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, did come out and speak about elimination of that Israel has taken out some really, really bad people and has kind of inflicted very big wounds and very big casualties on its enemies. And he mentioned 3 victories. One of them was the smash and the crashing blow that Israel gave to the Houthis in Yemen, who have been nonstop taunting and firing at Israel. But until they haven't killed anybody, Israel was silent. And finally, they when they hit in the middle of Tel Aviv and they killed somebody and injured other people, Israel took what we would say, taught them a lesson and blew up their entire port. And it's interesting how the Houthis were pretty quiet for a while. It seems like the blow was very, very severe for the Houthis. They didn't really imagine that they would get such a blow. It seems like all their front teeth were knocked out. Fine. So Netanyahu spoke that if anybody's going to mess with Israel, then these people are going to be punished. So the Houthis were one of them. The second one that he spoke about, again, I'm not going by the order. I didn't listen to his speech. I'm just talking about what I heard. Again, I read about it. The second one was they took out this fellow, Mohammed Dief. So Mohammed Dief was already killed in the beginning of July. Mohammed Dief was the head of Hamas military wing in Gaza. This guy was responsible to a very great degree for October 7th. Not only him, together with Hania, Mohammed Dief, and Sinwar, who was yet going to meet his maker very soon. But in any case, this guy was a real monster, and Israel took him out in some rocket attack somewhere, maybe in Khan Yunis, I think, during one of their operations in Gaza. Okay, so that was the second one. The third one was a Hezbollah major commander of Hezbollah that was taken out in Lebanon, in Beirut. I think it was an attack in Beirut. Israeli fired, I don't know if it was a drone or were fighter jets that came in and bombed a building, and they killed this fellow by the name of maybe Fahud. I'm not sure his first name. His last name is Shukr. Now, I usually don't speak about the names of these monsters because their names should be blotted out. But the reason today I am mentioning, so these were the 3. So again, before we get to that, these 3 Netanyahu kind of took credit for: the attack on the Houthis, the attack on the elimination of Dief, and the elimination of Shukr now, by the way, for the Americans as well, this was a victory because Shukr was responsible for 248, I think, American soldiers. It's interesting that this year is the 248th year of American independence. And I think it was 248, if that should be the number, of American soldiers that were killed in Beirut during a bombing. And this guy was responsible for them. So this guy's a real evil monster. And he now Israel took revenge for the attack on Israeli soil that killed 12 children in a soccer field, Druze children. That was just 2 weeks ago. Okay? So now what I would like to speak about today is interesting, that we have these five attacks, 5 eliminations. Now I'm going to leave out the Houthi attack, the destruction of the port, and whoever was killed in that attack from the Houthim. I'm sure they weren't the nicest fellows that you'd like to have over for lunch. I'm leaving that out because we're not dealing over there with a specific person. Over there, we're dealing with a people that have been messing with Israel, and Israel shut them up. Fine. But what we're talking about over here are 4 people that were eliminated. 4 wicked people that were destroyed. Now, one of them, unless there is some major hidden whatever, that Israel's Mossad is like so super cool and so unbelievably advanced that they were able to tinker with his helicopter and mess with the engine before it went off. So that's why it crashed in the thing. We don't know that. And we know the Iranians themselves did not openly or officially, besides conspiracy theories who are saying that the Mossad's hand was it, it seems like that was a complete act of God. And that happened on the 11th day of the month of Iyar, in which Raisi was killed miraculously. But what we have to realize is that continued. The story of Raisi's elimination didn't end because it led to Haniah's elimination as well. The removal of Haniah from the face of the planet was a direct result of the possibility, the opportunity for the Israelis to kill him was because he left his safe haven in Qatar and he came to Tehran. And over there, the Israelis got him. Now, the long hand of the Mossad can probably take care of business in Qatar as well. But I think that for political reasons, they don't want to do that. Because Qatar kind of is behaving a little bit like a negotiator in the middle. And definitely it would upset the Americans on a very high level because the Biden administration is very good friends with the Qataris. And that's the ones that he's been using to try to apply pressure on Israel. So for whatever reason, Bibi Netanyahu, the Israeli government, it seems like they're not looking for trouble. And although they vowed that the people responsible for October 7th, and this vow is a vow that is absolutely justified, they vowed to eliminate everyone, they waited for the moment. And it's interesting because everything is in the Torah. So last week in the Torah, it mentions it. There's an explicit, the week that it happened, when I was reading this, the week that it happened, you had this incredible remez, indication in the Torah about this occurrence, which because in the Torah is on many, many levels, and it's so I believe that this is one that we don't have to be afraid to say because it seems to be so evident that when you look at the news and you look at the Torah portion, you see how they match up. So here it says like this, that if someone kills someone, if they murdered someone accidentally, then they need to run to a city of refuge. And when they go to the city of refuge, they are protected. What does it mean they're protected? The person who was supposed to avenge the blood, which is a relative. A relative is called Goel Adam, the one who's a relative of the deceased, of the murdered person, wants to avenge the blood. But since the person killed this other individual, not unintentionally, so they don't deserve to die. So the Torah has protected this individual by giving him a safe haven, a place to go to. And as long as he stays within the border of a safe haven, he's protected. So the verse continues, and the verse says, this is in Numbers, you can look it up. It says in chapter 20, in chapter 35 in Numbers, verse 26, it says, Vim yatsa yetze harotzeach. But if the killer, the murderer, I'm going to call him a murderer because in this case it's talking about someone who killed accidentally, but he still killed someone. So if the killer will ever leave as Gvul Ir Miklatai, the border of a city of refuge, Asher Yana Shama, in which he had fled to that place to protect himself, if he ever leaves that place, and then it says in verse 27, Umatza Oisai Goyel Adam, and the avenger of the blood shall find him, Michutz Legvul Ir Miklatai, outside of the border of the city of refuge, V'ratzach goyel adam esarotzeach, and the avenger of the blood will kill the killer. Ein loy dam, there is no blood for him, which means that he is not responsible for the death of the murder. In other words, usually if the relative sneaks into the city of refuge and assassinates the killer of his or her relative, then that's considered murder, and the relative killing the killer can be held accountable and given capital punishment for that. If there are witnesses, he will be put to death for it because he's guilty of murder. However, if the guy acted with negligence and he left his city of refuge, for whatever reason, went on vacation, went to had a cousin's wedding and left, or whatever it is, and the relative was waiting in ambush, and he took him out, then he is innocent because he can claim he was outside of his border city. I had all the right to kill him. That's the rule. And therefore, Ein Lo Dam, he has no blood upon him. I have something very deep that just occurred to me right now as I'm teaching. So first of all, this is great. This is great. See, that's why you always have to teach, and then things happen. And I'm going to calm the people in my audience over here down. That's why Hashem sent me this thought, so that the people in my audience will be completely calm. And all of you can calm. The point over here is number one. We have a story of a killer, a massive killer, who in a sense can claim innocence because he was not the one who did it. He's the one who financed it and planned the whole thing. Of course, Haniah did not come in on October 7th himself and massacre anybody. But he was the designer of the entire thing. So of course, he's really guilty. But for whatever reason, he can play his game that he's not, and he's doing it for the Palestinian people with all the other rubbish that they claim. In any case, he was hiding out in Qatar. That was his safe haven. He was kind of being protected. Then he decided, because Raisi died, because he went to the inauguration of the new president of Iran, because of course Hamas needs the support of Iran. Hamas is one of the proxies of Iran. So he went to rub shoulders with the new president and make an alliance with him and scheme their evil plans of, God forbid, destroying the Jewish people, destroying Israel, and so on and so forth. So when he went over there, Israel got him. The avenger of the blood took him out. So this I said already on Shabbos, but now I'm going to add just one more thing. The verse says specifically, Ein Lo Dam. The relative who did that has no blood. We can read that in a much deeper level. No Jewish blood will be spilled on account of this act. From my mouth to God's ears. Not one Jew across the world should be hurt by this. In other words, notwithstanding the threats of the Iranians, where they're planning an attack, it should be completely thwarted. And nothing should happen, because they have no blood on their hands for taking Haniah's life, because he left his city of refuge. So we have a blessing in last week's Torah portion, that there should not be any blood spilled as a result of this. So what am I saying? Let's go back. That Raisi's death, which was the cause of a new president needing to be appointed in Iran, set off a chain of events. Because he was eliminated, now, which was God's doing, as we discussed earlier, which now caused that they needed a new president, which gave an excuse for Haniah to travel from Qatar to Tehran. And over there, he was killed. So the miracle that happened on the 11th day of Iyar is still continuing. It's a miracle in the making. Okay? So if you remember a couple of months ago, we spoke about when that happened, how the Cholkarnei Rishayim Agadeya, how when the horns of the wicked are taken down, Tremamna Karnei Sadik, the horns of Mashiach are lifted up. And then we spoke about the horns of the wicked being the Iranian regime, who are the Keter, the crown level of Klippa, of the unholy. And that's why they were taken down. That's why Raisi has the number 11 in his name. And he was killed on the 11th day of the month of Iyar. And the month of Iyar has a Aleph Yud right in the beginning. It also is number 11. Although it's the second month, but the word Iyar starts with Yud Aleph with the number 11. So 11, and I am going to review some of this a little bit later in the class. This is very important. The connection of Raisi's death But what I would like to focus on today is, and you'll see in a moment, is the interesting sequence that we have over here. We're seeing the elimination of evil taking place. Today I watched a good video from Rabbi Weisberg, who speaks about the elimination of the bad guys, Rabbi Isser Weisberg. And over there he mentions that you see, and I thought it was a phenomenal idea, that whenever there is a new light coming to the world, first room has to be made, space has to be made for the new light to come. And the space that is made for the new light to come is an eradication of a whole bunch of evil. So we see, he points it out in 4 or 5 places. He says, right before Yitzchak was born, Isaac was born, Sodom and Amorah needed to be eliminated. God removed the evil, wicked people from Sodom and Amorah, from those 2 wicked, sinful cities. Immediately after that, Isaac was born. The first Jew coming to the world, you needed space. The evil needed to be removed so space for holiness can come in. Then we find that right before the giving of the Torah, the Jews had to destroy Amalek. They had a war against Amalek. That's the last story before they came to the giving of the Torah. So you see again, for holiness to manifest, the war. Before the first temple can be built and before the Davidic kingdom could be established, King Saul was commanded to destroy Amalek. He failed to do it completely, and then King David had to continue fighting Amalek because in order for the establishment of God's kingdom in the world, Amalek needs to be removed first. So you see all these stages before the second temple was built. Right before that, Haman and his 10 sons were strung up on a tree. How many were there? Haman with his 10 sons is 11. Raci is number 11, right? We said earlier, because inside his name, he has a Yud and an Aleph. It's very important. We're going to speak about that later, what the significance of number 11 is. Again, for those of you who remember an earlier class called 7-Eleven, Slurpees, and all that stuff, it's all connected. The power of Mashiach is number 11, the Kesser of holiness. But what we're talking about tonight, I think is going to be fascinating, is as follows: that the sequence that's happening over here is that Raci was taken out by God. The Hania was taken out by the Israelis, but it was a covert operation, meaning to say that Israel did not openly take responsibility for that. And then the other 2 that were eliminated, Shukar, the head of the Hezbollah in Lebanon, and Da'if, who was eliminated in Gaza, that Israel took credit for. So what I'd like to perhaps present, this is all, in Hebrew we say, b'derech efsher. Derech efsher means a possible interpretation. To say this with absolute authority, you have to be a real Kabbalist, and you have to be a little bit of a prophet. I'm not a prophet, and I'm not a Kabbalist. Maybe I'm a Kabbalist in the making, but I'm not a Kabbalist. But if anybody learned the teachings of Rebbe Levi Yitzchak, the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe's father, I'm following his style. Now, there's no way anybody can compare it to Rebbe Levi, the Rebbe's father. He's like absolutely the coolest teacher in the world if you want to make connections. He takes every little event and finds the connections of what the deeper meaning, the godly, mystical, internal essence of everything, the names of any event. He always connects the name of the city, the name of the person, where it happened, how it happened, all the tiny little details all come together to create an incredible Cabalistic tapestry. So he shows you the inner workings of everything. When you learn his Torah quite a bit, which I've done, I probably could have learned much, much, much more, and I should, because I really enjoy myself. Every time I teach this teaching, I always say that I feel like I'm in a playground. I'm running around on the monkey bars and on the swings and flipping and a merry-go-round. I'm having the time of my life. It's really super enjoyable if you have a little bit of understanding. You have to have a little bit of an advanced understanding of Kabbalah, and you have to be patient because he writes very cryptic, and you have to have a calculator and be able to decipher the words. But one of the cool things that he always does is he looks into the names of the people and the names of the places, and through the names of the people and the names of the places, he cracks the code and gets into the spiritual energies, the essence, because the essence is always in the name. So inspired by that, I've taken a look at the story. And again, this came to me as Shabbos. I was thinking about what to say by our Kiddush over here. I speak on Shabbos, and I was thinking about the events and somehow it like exploded in my head. And I shared it at the Kiddush, but over then it's not recorded. So I figured, okay, let's record this and share it for the greater audience. So again, what I'm saying is possible. I don't know for sure that this is legitimate, but I'm going to give my possible explanation on the inner workings of the story, especially since the message that I am bringing out of it is not just sensational. I'm not trying to be sensational over here to create sensation of wow, like this really cool stuff, but rather the main story that we're going to develop in today's class is what this means in the inner psyche of the human being. What's the story really all about? Where we are at the center stage of this story. It's not just the story happening far away in the other side of the world, in Israel, in Iran, in Lebanon, where wicked people are being taken out as a preparation for Mashiach. But what does this mean to me, to all of us, in our personal lives and our service of God, and in our personal rectification that we need to make in order to prepare for Mashiach and for the Geula? And the lessons are going to be very, very potent and very powerful, and hopefully very, very empowering. So therefore, since there is a lesson that will hopefully bring to improvement in each and every one of our personal lives from what's really going on in these stories, what I'm going to hopefully try to, explain and to bring clarity in how the elimination of all these powerful forces that we've watched are not just people, but they are fundamental forces of evil that have stood in between us living our truest, deepest godly truth. These are obstructions that exist and existed within the entire world, including inside our own psyche. And until now, there were certain obstacles that we had preventing us to be able to live, or not preventing, but being, obstructive in our ability to be able to live the godliest life that we need to live, the truest life that we need to live. The elimination of these people in the world outside, that's the personification of a certain lie, of a certain darkness, of a certain distortion. And when its physical incarnation is busted and removed, that means that internally in the entire world, these darknesses have been broken, have been smashed, or these barriers have been smashed. And what this really means is that for now, we are able to live much godlier than we were able to live last week and 2 weeks ago. And therefore, I'm suggesting that to myself and to everyone listening, try to be in other words, the various different ways you've always dreamed of living when you studied and you learned about how to live a godly life, and you made an attempt, and you keep on and you and me and all of us, we keep on getting setbacks and falling back, which we try to live more godly, and we end up living not as godly as we would like, because it's not easy, it's not difficult. We all know we have evil inclination, we have Yetzer Hara. It's possible that the evil inclination and the Yetzer Hara that has been preventing us and obscuring us all this time has lost his steam now, because its physical representative has been eliminated. So he's now weak and he's collapsing. And therefore, here's the time to make it like to make a jailbreak, when the warden and the guards fell asleep, or there has been, a chance when the lock has been broken, We can all escape from our own internal prisons. When we are imprisoned by the klipa, by the unholy, by the shells, by the lies, by what keep us from living our own truth, now that the evil has been broken, we ourselves can make an escape and redefine ourselves and live on a much deeper level. So what we're going to do is to kind of, based on the information that I've given you before, we're going to be using the names, we're going to be using the places where they lived, where and how they were eliminated, to indicate and to show the entire chain of command of evil is collapsing. In other words, the physical elimination of them is an indication of the entire apparatus of darkness is actually coming down right now, because we are pre-mashiach right now. And this is amazing news. So therefore, even if maybe I'm making a mistake with some of these ideas, the lesson is for sure true and real. Because the lessons that I'm giving you are really the lessons of Tanya. I'm not saying anything new. I'm going to be taking a lot of what we learned in Chassidus and in Tanya and presenting it in the story that we've watched. Okay, shall we begin? Here we go. So let's first understand the general war that's taking place. Hamas launched an attack, and also important to know the dates of when all these, again, we're going to talk about the names of the people, the places, and the dates. And all this together is going to give us a clue about the inside story. So, to start, on October 7th, as we know, it was Shmini Atzeres, Hamas launched an unprecedented attack in which they brought upon a horrible, horrible, horrible calamity and darkness and massacre, and the brutality is indescribable, and we're not going to speak about that. But this is like as monstrous as it ever was. And those who have, if you don't do yourself a favor, don't look into, Israel has published actually some websites and things like that where the atrocities has been shown and displayed. And don't go there, but it's actually far more ferocious than what the Nazis ever did. So you're talking about an evil that is it's unimaginable. It just doesn't has its hatred and evil. We might call it infinite evil. There is no. It just was without 1 ounce of humanity. It was the most despicable action probably ever done in the world. It was so ferocious and so ugly and so barbaric. And the astounding thing is that so much of the world population is marching in the streets across the world in support of this evil. People who portray themselves as decent, good people, who are, caring people, and this are marching in the support of this evil. So something is so wrong, something that's so impossible. But what was it really all about? What was this war all about? Okay, we say the Palestinians, they want their land. Israel, they claim Israelis stole their land. They want their land, and so on and so forth. But there is a deeper story. Why did they attack now? What did the Hamasniks themselves, what do the Hamas people, the Islamic Jihad, what do they say when they are fighting? What did they call their attack? They call the attack, they call their brigades the Quds, the El-Quds, whatever they call them. And Quds means Jerusalem. They are fighting for Jerusalem. And the reason they attack now is because they know that their mosque, the Al-Aqsa mosque that is on the Temple Mount, is not going to be there soon. They know deep in their hearts that a Jewish temple is going to be built on that place. And they're fighting to prevent that from happening. As I mentioned in earlier classes, they themselves said they themselves said that they were triggered a lot and to act now because they saw the whole commotion about the red heifer. Now, the only reason Jews need a red heifer is to get purified so that we can officiate. In other words, they saw that we mean business. We're actually, physically, literally getting ready to build a third temple. Recently, Hamas released a video in which they revealed something very interesting. They revealed in their video how one of their enemies, one of their arch enemies that needs to be destroyed is the Chabad movement. Because the Chabadniks, and they are the ones who are pushing, first of all, they support Israel, and the Chabadniks are the ones that are pushing Mashiach. And in their video, they were showing the yellow flag, the Mashiach flag. You know, Chabad, not everybody waves that Mashiach flag, but in Chabad, there is a strong, what we call in Chabad the Messianics, in Lubavitch, are the ones who have this yellow flag. In the video that Hamas has been saying and put out, was that they shown that the yellow flag, the Mashiach flag, is being flown in Gaza. And they even in the video have the Rebbe. They show the video, it's just scary. They show the Rebbe and they say, this is what we're fighting against. So we're fighting against the temple, we're fighting against the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Chabad movement, we're fighting against the Mashiach element. It's clear. They want to stop the redemption. They want to stop Mashiach. Now, it has been spoken about them already. You know, all the prophets have spoken about the forces that will rise, and the prophets have spoken how they will gain global support to stop the redemption from happening. They will have, because in the prophets we have descriptions of major war against Jerusalem. Major war against Jerusalem. Participating by the nations. Now, thank God Hashem should protect. We don't need a global war coming on Israel. We don't need it. It was more than enough what Hamas did. Hezbollah, Iran, it's more than enough. But if they get moral support, if they get the support of the UN, that means that they have world support. When the UN condemns Israel, I think 50 times before they ever turned around to condemn Hamas, that means that they are standing on the side. The UN today has egg on its face, as everybody knows. Today, by the way, it's one of the stories that happened today. They finally admitted that UNRWA, which is a UN institution, participated, because the evidence is just right there and there, participated on October 7th. They admitted that at least 9, Israel is accused, I think, 27 of UNRWA employees that were participants in October 7th. So they dismissed evidence. I guarantee you the evidence is good if the Israelis presented it. But the UNRWA investigation, the UN's investigation dismissed a lot of them accusations. But on 9, they couldn't even say anything. And 9 of them said, yeah, okay, these guys. That means that the UN is basically a co-conspirator, if we might say. And you know, I'm going to mix in an American political thing. Do you know the 45th President Donald Trump, one of the first things he did was he shut down American support for UNRWA. The guy just has absolutely common sense. He doesn't play games. All this ridiculous lies that go on in Washington, in the political thing, it's so fake. There's so much deception. And the thing about Trump is that he just cuts through all the whatever and sees things for what it is immediately. And I remember that at that time, I myself didn't even know what UNRWA is. And he said, I'm not giving them another penny. He completely shut them out. America's supporting an organization that is trying to take down Israel. It's the UNRWA is trying. It's unbelievable. He did it. So, where am I going with all of this? Let me go back here. So back to the main point over here is that the war. So, we talk about the global war. So when the UN and the European Union, and you have countries all over the world that are in support of, not openly supporting Hamas, but trying to restrain Israel from defending itself. When Hamas clearly said that they're going to do it again, that means you are in support of Hamas. So when it says that there will be a global war against the Jewish people to prevent Mashiach from happening, that happened. It doesn't have to be global that armies come upon Israel, but if the armies of the world support this evil, that means that the entire world has turned towards Israel. I say the entire world, I don't mean all people in the world, but most of the governments of the world, and lots of the Hamas, the Palestinians, have a whole lot of a very big fan club. So so we know what the outside story is. They want to defend their land. The inside story is they want to prevent the redemption from happening. They're here now. When we say that, whether that's conscious or that's subconscious, probably 85 to 90% of that is subconscious. It's the forces of darkness, because there are satanic forces in this world. We know that one of the elements that's going to happen in the coming of Mashiach is that all evil will be eliminated from the world. Satan will be destroyed. All forces of darkness will dissipate. And the world will be filled with love and goodness and holiness and godly consciousness. So when the forces of darkness and lies and deception are ready to go out the door, what do? They put up a fight. And that's the fight that happened. But here's the question. Why did they choose this holy day, Shmini Atzeres? Shmini Atzeres is such a holy day. It's the peak of all of the Jewish holidays. It's the moment of divine intimacy. Sages tell us that for the entire duration of the month of Sukkot, which is of the holiday of Sukkot, there's a huge party happening in heaven by God. And the Gentile nations are all invited to participate. God is so happy, he invites the global community to that party. And that's why in the days of the temple, which we'll have Be'ezrat Hashem already for this Sukkot, they would offer every day a certain amount of oxen, which the sum total of those oxen that they offered, those bulls that were offered, were 70. To give representation for the 70 nations, to bring blessings to the nations of the world through the Holy Temple. Because from the Holy Temple comes the flow of divine energy to all of the world. So divine blessings. So they all had a part of it. But on the last day, on Shmini Atzeres, God shuts the door, party is over, everybody goes home, and he whispers into the ear of the Jewish people, and God says, hang out with me one more day. Just me and you. Let's stay together. Now, I don't want no big party, no big show. It's going to be small, without the pomp, without all the things. Just a small little romantic dinner, me and you. And mystically, it says that Shmini Atzeres is the deepest intimacy, literal intimacy, that God has with his wife, the Jewish people. That's the moment. And the Hamas went and chose that day to attack. And I said it on Shabbos. I was a little scared to say it, but I don't know. So maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. I don't know this. I would have to have my head in heaven. Let's just say it on a very simple level. They really, really ruined the mood of that intimacy this year. Whether the intimacy happened or it didn't happen, I don't know. But it was very, very hard for us to dance this year. The whole world Jewry received the news. We're not living in the olden times when news would travel very slow. And even on Shabbat and even on the holidays, through Gentiles and Jews that sadly don't keep the holiday, news was spread across the entire world. And we were very sad. We tried to overcome that sadness by dancing and continuing the festivities, but it just wasn't the same. So it's like an intimacy that is supposed to happen between a husband and a wife, and something goes wrong. And usually that's not good. Doesn't feel good. And that's what happened this year. So let's understand why. What's the deeper story? What's really going on over here? The big question over here is the land of Israel. What's the essence of the dispute? Okay, yes, they don't want the temple to be rebuilt. Got that. But what on a more external level, what do they want? They say it's Palestinian land, that the Palestinians should be given a right to live on their land. They have a right to statehood. Now, we know that its statehood is Baba Mises. Baba Mises means his grandma stories. They don't want no statehood. They want Israel. That's why Israel would commit suicide if Israel would allow a Palestinian state. It would, the same exact thing that happened in Gaza would happen in the entire territory. They would get right to building tunnels and doing doing whatever they're doing to. By the way, over here I'm going to take something. Again, I'm doing a little bit of a detour just for a moment because I believe this is very important to mention. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, who is being proven again and again and again to be a prophet, not just a prophet, but an outstanding prophet, an unbelievable prophet that like the world has never seen, I believe. It's unbelievable. The Rebbe in 1970s, when the Camp David, when they were making the Camp David, the peace between Israel and Egypt, the Rebbe cried and cried and begged and cried and pleaded publicly, privately, that Israel should not do that. Israel should not return the Sinai that they captured with so much blood on the Yom Kippur War, that it would be suicidal for Israel. And the Rebbe was saying, what are you getting? You're getting a paper that's worth nothing. Egypt is going to sign a paper that we're at peace with our neighbor, and Israel's going to have peace. And for that, Israel is giving back strategic territory. Israel is giving back, oil fields, financial resources. Incredible. Israel, the Rebbe said, it's ridiculous. It's insane. Don't do it. Don't do it. The world is not even expecting you to do it. It's only because you're so weak and so insecure that you think that you need to appease the Gentiles. The Rebbe said, a little Jewish pride. You were attacked. You gained this land. It's yours. Don't give it back. And one of the things the Rebbe said was that the peace with Egypt is a farce. It's not true. The Egyptians don't have good intentions of peace. They are 100% still harboring their animosity and hatred to Israel, and quietly, under the radar, they are supporting terrorists all across the world. Now this, the Rebbe kept on arguing again and again and again. And the Rebbe kept on referring to this throughout all the years, even later in the 1980s, 1990s, every time the Rebbe was talking about, kept on going back to the devastating peace accord that they made with Egypt. And people would argue to me. I remember it clearly. I had a cousin of mine who came to me when I was in Borough Park once in a shul, and he said to me, because he knew I'm a Lubavitcher, I'm so fired up about the Rebbe, and he said, the Rebbe's wrong, because take a look. It's already 50 years or whatever. There is a peace, or 40 years. The peace with Egypt, it's lasting. We don't have any wars with Egypt since then. And the Rebbe said it should never have been done, and it can't. And he said, and I really didn't have what to answer and now we're seeing they're finding now tunnels dug from Gaza across the Egyptian border. Not just tunnels large enough for trucks to go. So vehicles with weapons have been smuggling who knows how long. And guess the newest discovery? They found a makeshift railroad. Not for a train, because a train would be too obvious, but for something on a track where you can pull some type of a wagon, some kind of a thing in. In other words, the capacity to bring in weapons on levels that who knows what. And the Egyptians are complicit in the arming of Gaza that was taking place. They haven't even finished. There are so many more tunnels. They know there are so many more. That's unbelievable. It is like the most, if you think about it, what the Hamas and the Palestinians were able to create, you got to tip your hats to them, of like, wow, it was like one of the most unbelievable accomplishments to be able to create such an underground, complex system that the Israelis don't even know how to begin to take it down. It's incredible what they built. Think about what they could have built with that money above their land had they only wanted peace and they wanted to do good for their people. Instead, their resources of billions and billions of dollars, including American tax money and so forth, that went into building all of this infrastructure. But I'm just pointing that out, that what we thought the whole time that Egypt was, they're our dear friends. The Rebbe saw 50 years ago. The Rebbe saw what was going on, and the Rebbe said explicitly, they're arming terrorists. And everybody thought that he doesn't know what he's talking about. It's so clear. Anyways, back to what we were saying. What's the external fight is over the land. Whose land does it belong to? Okay, the Arabs have a right to parts of Israel, and so on and so forth. What I'd like to do now is to translate that into the spiritual dynamic, because we know that just like there is a physical land of Israel, there is also a spiritual land of Israel. The spiritual land of Israel is who? Is our physical bodies, Jewish bodies. I'm particularly turning to the Jewish people listening, okay? And how this applies to Gentiles, maybe we'll see how we can make that, how we can figure that out as well. But I probably won't address that today. But our Jewish bodies, because the physical, the Hashem says regarding the Jewish people, Ki tiem atem li. There's a verse that says, God says, Ki ti, I don't know offhand where the verse is, but it says like this in one of the prophets, Ki tiem atem li, you will be for me, eretz chayfetz, a desirable land. That means God says about the Jewish people, you are my land. So whether a Jew lives in the land of Israel, where he doesn't live in the land of Israel, where he lives in the diaspora across the world, his or her physical body is God's desired land. We also know it says in the land of Israel, the land of Israel is a Jewish land meant for Jews to live in that land, to inhabit that land. But primarily, why does God want to live with the Jewish people in the land of Israel? Because he wants a place to live. And just like a person doesn't want to live alone, they want company. A person wants to establish their home, they want a wife who they love very dearly, to live and share their home with. God, the ultimate man, wants a woman. And the woman, and when you have a woman, you want to be able to choose a woman from amongst all the other women. So God chose his bride. At Sinai, God chose his bride. And he said, me and you will be married. And immediately after Sinai, God said, let's build a home together where we can live together. And that was the temple. It started off with a makeshift temple, the small temple. But in the verse that it says over there, it says, God says, V'asoli migdash, make for me a temple, v'shachanti betocham, and besocham, and I will dwell amongst them. Now the interesting wording is it doesn't say I will dwell besochoi in it, besocho in it. It says I will dwell amongst them. So the commentators explain that even though God wants a physical building in which he will live, he really wants to live inside each and every one of us. Like there is a song that goes on the verse, there's a piece of holy Jewish poetry which says, "Bilevavi mishkan evne." In my heart, I will build a building, a mishkan. I will build an edifice, lahadar kavodo, for his glory, for his majestic glory. So the place where, and there's another verse in which the Jewish people are called in Heichal Hashem Hema. There's a verse that says that Israel is called Heichal Hashem. They are called the chamber of God. So in that sense, the temple, and on a broader sense, the entire land of Israel, Jerusalem, the Temple Mount, and then all the cities of Israel, the entire land of Israel is really metaphoric. In addition to it being a physical space in the physical world, is also metaphoric for the Jewish people themselves, but particularly their bodies. Because God doesn't want to dwell in the spiritual heavens. God doesn't want to only dwell in our souls. If God wanted to dwell in our souls, he could have left our souls in heaven, disembodied in a spiritual place, and kind of married us in heaven. God did not married us in heaven. He incarnated us all in bodies because he wants the connection to be in the physical world inside our physical bodies. If that's the case, we have to make sure that our body is a Jewish body. What's a Jewish body? A Jewish body means the body that knows it's a bride of God. A body that it knows it's a home for God. That means that only Jews live in this body. What does that mean? That the body does only Jewish things. Now let's understand a little bit deeper the word Jewish. I'm not trying over here to claim to make on the differentiations, this, that. Let's go straight to cut right through to the essence of it. What does Jewish mean in its essence? Jews are called Jews, but they come from the word Judah. So really, it's interesting. Only one tribe of the Jewish people are the Judeans. Judean mountains, like the Judean hills, the Judean territory in Israel, is where the tribe of Judah lived. So why are all Jews called Judah? The simple reason is because the majority of the Jewish people today that we know are descendants of Judah, because the rest of the 10 tribes were sent away, and somehow we don't know where they are. So we have Judah, but there is a deeper reason. The word Judah comes in Hebrew from the word Yehuda, and Yehuda comes from the word submission, Hoda'ah. What that really means is the Jewishness of the Jew is the submission to God. That means, in simple words, the adherence to God's desires and wants. A good woman is a woman who really, really, really hears and cares and is devoted completely to her husband and to what her husband wants. And of course, the husband is devoted to her as well. But since in our case, we're talking about us versus God, so we're going to talk about from our side, how we should treat our husband. So the treating of our husband is that we are extremely sensitive and nuanced to him. Now, God is a very, 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 very difficult husband. That means he has a whole lot of desires and wants. Some of them are beautiful and wonderful. Some of them are pretty quirky. But yet, he desires them, whether we understand them or not. Obviously, he's God. So he's much smarter than us and far more intelligent. And he's infinite and amazing. And therefore, when he wants to live inside of us, it's not so easy to accommodate. But to be fully Jewish means to be plugged into his will and to live our lives in accordance to how he wants us to live. And that he can live inside of us, which basically means he is dwelling in the world through our actions. God is super sensitive and super allergic. He breaks out with allergies. Every little thing we do that he dislikes, he gets an allergic reaction. Okay? If you eat something that's a little bit off, how do you know what's off? God spells out. He's a very strict diet. In the Torah, he tells us exactly which foods we can eat, which foods Okay. So funny. I'm on it over here, but it's doing the same thing over here. It's not catching. Even my phone is not catching. Although it went on. The internet is working on my phone, but it's not catching my. I don't know. I'm telling you, the only one that would know is Moshe. So what do I do? Should I just finish the class tomorrow? Yeah, it's not going to help. I know nothing. I'm ignorant and ignorant. Oh, maybe you hear me. Maybe they hear me now. Oops, it happened again. Okay. Oh, what happened is that in Los Angeles, we're getting major outages here, and all the internet went down. And I don't want to do voice only. So what we're going to have to do is, okay, I'm going to leave you guys all on a cliffhanger. I'm going to finish this class. Yeah. Okay. I thought it was what I was saying that was too intense and knocked out knocked out my internet. But it looks like it's not me, it's the whole city here. Oh, I'm on. How do you like that? But I'm on my phone. I'm on my phone and I don't like this situation here. So what should we do? Should we continue the class like this, or should we get on or finish it tomorrow on a clear channel? Okay, the decision is that we're gonna finish it tomorrow on a clear. Hopefully, maybe Mashiach will be here completely tomorrow. That we won't have to tell you any of my cool innovations. What do you think? I think we should finish it tomorrow. I'm going to get my internet fixed. What happened is, this is what's going on. What happened is because of the blackout that happened twice. Actually, it just happened twice. The modem and the router got knocked out, and as a result of that, it's not working. My phone is not on Wi-Fi. My phone is, I guess, on general internet. Okay. We will continue. We will continue Bezrat Hashem tomorrow. This will be part 1, and tomorrow we'll get part 2. We'll go right at it. Okay? Thank you. A good night.